This
The
conference will now be recorded.
Brattleboro Planning Commission to order on July 6th, 2020 in go-to meeting. So announcements. I have one announcement, which is I showed up on the meeting wearing my mask, and it seemed to me that given the sort of political issues with mask wearing, that I thought, since we're volunteer community members, that we all let it wear our mask to signify that mask wearing is keeps everybody safe. You don't do it for yourself, you do it for others. So,
and it helps you too.
Yes, and it does help
I
you
wear
too.
my mask out all the time, but I don't want to have to wear it in my house.
No. I'm just saying that just put it on so that we can have a picture of us all wearing our masks.
Okay.
That we support mask wearing in all public spaces to protect our fellow Brattleborians and Vermonters, visitors and residents alike.
You know, I don't have a mask up in my office, but I've got the makings of one.
Super. Okay.
All right.
Good. All right. Thank you all.
To get our screenshot for DCTV.
Oh, all right. Screenshot.
Thumbnail, or whatever you call it. Yeah.
All right. Good. Are we good? Other announcements?
I think Rick's got one. Tom might be going to get one.
Oh. No, Tom had one. He had one in his hands in the beginning. I saw that.
Oh, okay.
All right. So are there other announcements?
There are no other well, I shouldn't say that. Committee met last week to choose the consultant for the bike scoping study on Western Ave, and we're bringing something before the select board tomorrow night. I don't want to announce the firm because the select board needs to announce it, but that is moving along and will get started, and will be a project that will take about a year. There'll be public input and other activities going on with that. So it's a scoping study for a bike lane from exit 2 down to Main Street.
No,
Try the chat.
Didn't understand that.
Try the chat, Tom.
You could also call in on that number that I provided in the chat. We've had people do that on meetings when sound is a problem, and then you can kind of talk and we should be able to hear you clearly.
Can I ask a question about the scoping study, Sue?
Yeah, please, Prudence.
Yep.
So it'll take a year for the firm to come up with plans and get public input, and then the steps after that are to find funding, or does some of that run simultaneously, or?
I'm not sure exactly. Like, I know that this VTrans did not put out around this year. So it depends on the timing. Hopefully that timing would align if we were looking for funding from VTrans, some more of the federal funds. I mean, we should be far enough along at that point, but I just don't know when their grant deadlines will be. But sometimes, like, I think some of the actions could also be done by our public works without having to, if it's a matter of restriping or, you know, working with the state to get the permission to restripe. So I'm not exactly sure how that's all going to align.
Thank you.
Other announcements? No? All right.
Is that
sorry.
on as a caller?
Can I bring up a point?
Yeah. Please, Tom. Is that you, caller 01?
Yes, I'm caller number 1.
All right.
We can hear you.
Can we, maybe you guys were just saying it, but can we get a little update on those parklets that were put up on Main Street? It seemed like maybe they weren't so much of a hit, unfortunately.
Yeah, some of them were put out and pretty quickly some of the restaurants decided that they didn't want to use them. So they were taken down pretty quickly, but that was at the request of the restaurants.
Yep.
I think that, I don't know exactly all their reasons. I think it was happening simultaneously with indoor dining opening back up. And so some restaurants just wanted to be able to focus on that. Um, so it's not something I've been directly involved in to know what the feedback is, but I can definitely find out for you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, no, I think that's enough for my personal curiosity. I'm just glad that, the Planning Commission didn't have a hand in making, in doing it physically, but I'm glad we did something and the town took some action, like, related to our letter.
Mhm.
I wanted to ask you guys, maybe it's better to address later, I don't know, but when Brandy and the team suggested that to change that kind of weird loophole with trucking weight, and to go to the state laws to change that loophole that makes trucks, really heavy trucks, have an incentive to go on state roads through town centers instead of taking the interstate. I wonder if that's
Mhm.
something that the other planning commissioners might be interested in penning a letter to our 3 legislators or maybe other folks suggesting that change. Maybe no one's really caught that loophole before Brandy. I don't know.
Um, it's a federal thing, not a state action. So I think that it would go to the federal delegation. There had been a pilot project a couple of years ago that did allow them onto the interstate highway. And I can't recall the reason that it wasn't extended. I think there just wasn't the federal support there. But yeah, we can definitely look into how speaking to the delegation or what we can do.
Okay,
Prudence,
yeah, I remembered it being a little different, but I'll just find the notes and I'll just send it to Sue, maybe you in between meetings, just because maybe I'm a little
Yep.
confused about a point. So
Prudence,
Okay.
you had a question, comment?
I know it's been discussed over the years, and I think it's very complicated, but I don't have more details than that. I mean, it would be great to be able to accomplish it, but it hasn't been under the radar. I know there's been attempts to address it.
My recollection is like yours, Tom. I think when we get to the rollout, we could actually look at that, because I thought that was that seemed really important, especially in this time when we really need to use outdoors as much as we possibly can. Reducing truck traffic seems like a no-brainer.
yes.
But my thought was that we would do that in E. Is that
Okay,
okay?
great. Yes.
So other announcements, comments? Okie doke.
No other announcements from us.
Okay. So do we have any members of the public here on the phone or anywhere? Speak now. Oscar, welcome. Okay. Approval of the minutes from June. Did everybody
So
get a
moved.
chance to look at them? They were so moved. All right, is there a second? Yes, there's a second. So, comments? Discussion? I have one comment, which is I found the discussion of some of the issues of the plan really hard to make sense of. And not that I want you to change the minutes for now, because it's fine as is, but I'm just wondering if it's possible, rather than that sort of narrative form, to do a bullet pointed, this part of the plan was discussed, this part of the plan was discussed, because it would make it a lot easier to use the minutes to help inform this discussion that we're going to have, since issues were raised and then now would be, theoretically, we would go back and look at those things that we asked Brandy to do. It just seems like it might make the minutes easier to use if there was a bullet pointed sort of, here's the issue that was raised on this section, so we could go back and look directly. And there was a conceptual concept at one point that I thought maybe it could just be one concept as opposed to a conceptual concept.
It was a little technical, so that was on me. I will.
Yeah. No,
I will.
I mean,
I could definitely revise that to a bulleted format.
yeah, I mean, I don't think it's necessary for now, but I was just in terms of the utilitarianism of it. It seemed like it would just make it easier for us to look back if we had just bullet points.
Yeah, you
But
got it.
Okay. I mean, yeah, but just me being pick nitty.
It's all right. Thanks for bringing it up.
All right, no more discussion. All those in favor of approving the minutes? Thumbs?
Aye.
And aye for Tom. Okay, the minutes are approved unanimously. And
Josh,
now,
did you abstain? Was that an abstention for Josh? Or did you vote?
oh, he voted. You're not
Okay.
allowed to vote.
Yep. Oh, I'm not because I wasn't here.
No, he
You
is
weren't there.
allowed to vote. He can.
Oh, he is allowed to vote. Okay. No, everybody voted. Everybody said yes.
Okay.
So now we're at E, public rollout of the downtown plan. So everybody read the downtown plan. This is both our opportunity to give further comments if we want to. I hope everybody got their comments to Sue and from thence to Brandy. Oh, I'm repeating myself. It's repeating me. Sorry. So the public rollout. Do we want to talk about that, or we want to talk about? No, it's not annoying, Oscar. That's fine. Oscar's putting questions in the chat, and Sue, if you have your chat on and I have my chat on, we'll sort of keep tabs on the chat on Oscar's question. Is there an updated
We should
link?
make sure to read them into the record.
Okay, so Oscar asks, is there an updated link that has the missing sections filled in from last time? Yes, there is, but it didn't go out to the public, Oscar. I don't think, because it just went to the commissioners.
It's the same link.
It's the same link, okay. So comments on how does everybody understand what we're gonna do in terms of the public rollout? No, so Sue, do you wanna walk us through that? I mean, what
I think part of that was, I think we're trying to figure out what the public rollout, what do we want to do with it? So as part of the grant, there was supposed to be a final meeting, but we've talked about having a couple of short videos being done that then people can watch and react to, send comments. We've talked about having, I think, presenting it to some smaller groups in whatever way, getting it before different groups. I mean, I think we're in this challenging COVID period. So part of what we're doing tonight is figuring out how do we want to get this out there and get feedback from the public.
But we're required by, what exactly are we required by law to do? Just so we make sure we do
we're required by the grants, the terms of the grants, to kind of have a final public meeting.
But to get it approved, what do we need to do?
Well, final approval would be to the select board, but I think we want to make sure that it's out there and vetted by the public before we take anything to the select board. As a plan, it would just be approved by the select board.
Just the select board, but somebody could stop it at the select board.
Sure, the select board could choose not to adopt it.
And we don't want them to do that. I mean, we assume, we presume, how do we feel about that as a commission? Do we want the select board to approve this plan?
I've got questions. I hope we can discuss it before.
Okay.
Rather than a yes or no on that one.
Okay. So why don't we start with you then, Prudence? You got questions. Let's hear them.
Okay. I commented, just a couple of thoughts. I commented to Sue about the way around, and I don't see that as as necessarily that helpful to cyclists, and there's going to be cost implications. So I had concerns about the way around for cyclists. I think it might be helpful for pedestrians, but so that's my major concern. But also, there's so many good ideas, and how do we focus so that some of this stuff gets implemented? I mean, just adapting the plan. I haven't been through this before, as you guys know. I'm new to the commission, but what does adopting the plan mean? It seems like there's some things that could be done inexpensively, quickly, other things, and she set it up that way, short, medium, long term. But are we saying that we think every element should be done if possible, or would we prioritize, which parking lots are a priority to be made, to have park space, agreeable public space in, and so on?
Excellent question. How do we answer that?
So I have a couple of thoughts to that. And I do think that one of the challenges is that there's lots of ideas, and when you're looking at the parking lots and taking away parking for bike lane or something like that, I mean, I think we do need to prioritize because there are a lot of ideas in there, and so I kind of feel like that's a little bit of a shortcoming of what are the things that we want to see done, that we want to move forward, because it could also be, how it's going to get implemented is either longer term kind of projects that the town's undertaking. So say we're paving a lot, maybe, that's a time to take a look at how it's being used. It could be grant funding. One of the things is that we know that the Bridge Street area is going to change. So maybe where we start planning for those kind of changes in the Depot Bridge Street area to be taking place when the bridge is completed. So there are places that it's going to take more specific planning, actually, like a project plan. And so, maybe we're looking for funding to hire an engineering firm and a designer to do that, so that it's ready to go. And then maybe we're budgeting for some of those changes. Maybe we're looking at the parks and we're saying, or where we're looking at some of the maintenance practices and we're saying we need more pruning and we need more this or cleaning, and so we're looking at the town's budget and we're saying we need to, if we want to do these things, it might take a different allocation of resources. So it is really just a plan at this point, and it's going to be up to us and other town departments and officials to kind of put it into action.
Does the prioritization take place before we take it to the select board or after?
I guess it could go either way. I think that it could be good to do it before. We could spend some time with this plan and then take it to the select board in several months, because we're trying to work through the priorities if we want to do that. We don't have a deadline to take it to the select board. Let's put it that way.
Oh, that's good to know. Josh, yes.
Do we have any clues as that the select board might not approve this?
No. But it's been a while, but they haven't seen this final plan, and it's been several months since we had the public outreach. So it's going to have to be a refresher and that kind of thing.
Oscar asks, is the plan in a form that will be easily editable by the commission once the consultant hands it off? Good question.
Yeah, that is a good question. Andrew has some experience with Esri, the program that it's in, but I'm not sure. Andrew, have you done a story map before? I mean, I think it's software that he's familiar with, and yes, we'll be able to edit some of it. We're not going to be able to edit drawings. We just don't have those skills. But
yeah, the
story
map's definitely doable. I mean, I've done it before, so I mean, if it has to be done, it has to be done. I don't have like a lot of experience, but it's something obviously I can learn more about. adapt to if the situation deems that we want to make those changes.
Huh. Other questions, comments? Oscar.
Hello. Just take this for what it is, which is a random piece of advice from a random member of the public. So this is just what I've been thinking about when I've been reading it. And I said a little of this last time, but as someone who hasn't really been a part of the process and has just been reading the plan for the first time, like a lot of people will be doing when it comes out of the commission, I feel like a weakness of the plan is that it doesn't really have a strong through line. It doesn't start with goals or problems to solve. And therefore, all the things it proposes just sort of sit out there as things that, you know, they all seem sort of good, but they don't, there's no argument for them. There's no logical procession of ideas. I don't know, that's probably overly harsh, but does what I'm saying sort of make sense, at least? Okay.
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah. Yeah, no, actually that's really concise and you hit the nail on the head, Oscar. I think that's my, I mean, I think I've been thinking about the RFP as I've been reading it. So, and it does respond, I mean, it responds to what we asked, but of course it's less clear what we asked if when you're reading the plan. But that, yeah, Jess.
What did we ask in the RFP? What were we asking for?
We asked for, I remember economic development and I remember green infrastructure.
Bike and pedestrian.
And bike and pedestrian, yeah.
And public
Creative
spaces.
placemaking.
And public spaces, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean,
downtown good public space, like
right.
is described at the outset.
What do we want to respond to that comment, or do we just want to leave it? I mean, it does seem like if we don't, there's no pressure on us taking it to the select board. There is pressure that we have to present it to the public. We have to get feedback because that's the part of the closing out of the grant. We had said, I think you said, Sue, that you were going to talk to Stephanie and show it to Stephanie.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the municipal people who might have to step in and do some of the pruning and things like that. So have you done that? Have you had a chance to get some feedback from others? Okay.
No, not yet. I have a DBA meeting on Tuesday, so I will bring it up with the board then.
Okay. Do we want to talk about, I mean, Prudence?
Well, I agree with Oscar in terms of, you know, I think it's going to be more compelling if we have, this is what we're trying to accomplish, and then here's, you know, and here's ideas for how to get there. And then the other thing I just wondered would be if we can take some time with it, could there be a section, you know, could there be then planning commission recommendation as the final section of the plan or something, or, you know, where we do some of the winnowing out of what seems to be the highest priorities or whatever.
Yeah, Josh.
Sorry, my space bar is not working all of a sudden, so I don't know why my mic's not turning on instantly. I apologize. Could this be something as simple as like adding a simple, I know it's never simple, but just a mission statement to the beginning to kind of give the direction that we're taking this, or talking about all the bullet points that we just mentioned and adding it to the site to give the direction that we're kind of not guiding it, but bringing this, or brought to us, I should say.
Yeah, I think that that's a way that it can be done. If you're all saying it's, and it's true, it's not, you know, laid out very clear then yeah, we should look at some of the first, slides of this story map and figure out how to achieve that. I think it's a valid criticism. And especially like post-COVID, well, we're not post-COVID, but now we're in COVID. When this started, COVID wasn't a thing, and we're going down a different way, and some of this might not, we talked about it a little bit at the last meeting, the timing isn't that great. I mean, there are parts of it that, yes, planning is going to continue, and public spaces and wanting to be outside. And we took an economic development approach that was, about how do we improve downtown, make it more comfortable for all people, and that's going to enhance the economic activity. But if we were writing this RFP now, it might be really different from an economic development standpoint. So there are parts of it that maybe feel a little out of sync with what's going on
Josh.
in this pandemic.
Yeah, I really wish we started this process now in a COVID world. It kind of really, it's kind of a bummer that we're not doing this from the beginning. I'm not even going to ask, is there any way we can start the process over? Because obviously that is not realistic. But in a COVID world that we live in, I feel like this could be an opportunity for us to address some COVID issues with this. But obviously we started this a long time ago, and that's a very difficult thing to do. So.
But I think, Josh, I actually think we can do that. I mean, I think there are a couple of really good parts to this plan that speak directly to the COVID era. And perhaps prioritizing would take the form of saying, we have this plan, it has some nice long-term pieces to it, which we're going to say, those are really nice for over there. And then it has some things that we think if we were to get some money to do right away, or just, reorganize things so we could do them right away, these are the things that we would really enhance our downtown for the COVID era, which we, science tells us we're going to be in for another year and a half at the least. Until vaccines are tested and stuff. And so maybe we can start. I mean, obviously, I think the bike path is one of those. That's a clear one. And the public spaces is another one. And so is it possible for us to do that? I don't know that necessarily we need to do that in this meeting. I mean, it might be. But because I think what we really need to make sure that we have a rollout in order to do the final process. But it does seem, yeah, Jess.
I wonder if that might be like the focus of the public conversation on it, about how it might be relevant or might support business and economics in the downtown, or people in the downtown in this new era. Like, not just a like, here it is, respond to it, but we've been working on this and we invested in this, and are there parts of this that seem relevant and good and useful? And so we can frame then our mission statement or recommendations or whatever it is based on that next public input piece.
I think that's a great idea.
Is there a way for people who don't want to, for busy people like the people that the public input people that we really need, that they can go right to the proposals? Because I love the history part. Obviously, I'm a historian, but I'm sure that's going to drive people insane when they're thinking, is there something here that I need to pay attention to, or can I just flip through this in order to get to the part that says, well, here's the design?
Like the idea of those posters.
So there's a couple of things. I mean, yeah. So we can print out PDFs of it and get it in some format so that we can mail them to people. They can come get them when we're open, or at the library, or get them out there. We can definitely do that. But we could also there'll be the poster. Which will still come, once we've kind of given a sign off. At some point, there's going to be a poster, which is supposed to be more concise with just what is the plan and what are those pieces. So
Oh, good.
Good.
Okay.
I know, Tom, that was, I think, in your comments as well. So
Yeah, I think we need to grab people's attention in order to encourage them to delve into 100 pages. But yeah, I wanted to speak a
yeah,
little bit too. It was a little choppy when Jess was speaking. I think maybe I might be repeating what she was saying, but like I'm totally with everyone with focusing if we can prioritize or winnow, as Prudence said, the proposals. And in the short term, make them focus towards COVID, but also if this downtown design plan is going to be, um, what's the word, like, if it's going to be like durable or relevant, like long term, and some of these plans, if they get implemented, are going to take 5, 10, 15, 20 years, or they'll happen somewhere in that. I assume we'll have a vaccine by then, and things will kind of return to normal. So maybe we shouldn't, for the medium and long term things, that should be not through the lens of COVID.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, Andrew.
I mean, like a lot of plans, especially a town plan, I mean, I see this as a living document in a way, if that makes any sense, though, that, it can be adaptable, it can change. And I don't think just one, like, obviously there's a statutory requirement for a town plan, so obviously you got to make changes, but I think it should be the same kind of with any plan, especially a downtown plan. Of course, Brattleboro is going to change. So I think that is a great idea. And I think Tom hit on it perfectly.
Josh.
I'm really bummed my space bar is not working. That sucks. So to touch on Oscar's concerns about it not having like a direction, I'm wondering if there's a simple way to give this direction. And on the website itself, it says downtown design plan. Like, of course, that's fine. I wonder if we can come up with a catchphrase that can also stand in as a mission statement to just be a little bit catchier and make things more understandable of why we're presenting this to the select board and the community. So like coming up with something simple, and this isn't what we should use at all. This is just me trying to come up with something. And growing Brattleboro in an ever-changing world. It's cheesy, but something like that. And I'm not sure if I'm fine with the word growing, maybe engaging Brattleboro in an ever-changing world. As like a sort of slogan for the downtown design plan. So we can get rid of downtown design plan and maybe change it to something else that will then be more explanatory to people that are wondering what it is. And that then goes on to, was that Andrew that was just saying about how this is, it's malleable. We can change it as it progresses or goes on.
Cool. That's a good idea, Josh. How about
I think
enduring?
I like that suggestion too, Josh, because every time I've said a downtown design plan, everybody's like, what it's dealing with. So I don't think it's definitely not translating to people.
No. What about enduring Brattleboro in an ever-changing world? Or a durable Brattleboro in an ever-changing world?
I love where this is going, just to be
Resiliency or resilience.
Yeah. No, I think that's a great idea. Prudence, you got an idea?
This isn't really right. This isn't quite right, but it would get attention. Fixing downtown or something, or I don't know. Because we all love it, and then yet it could be so much more.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to me that the title should emphasize the things that we think are the key contributions. And I mean, I don't want I want to go back to your comment on the bike path, Prudence, because I think that that was one of the things that I really hoped we were going to be able to solve with this plan, or at least get somewhere towards it, because it seems to me that it's a must do. We have to make this town more bike and pedestrian safe. But somehow in the title, we should have something having to do with its green infrastructure, economic development, and notions of sustainability. And I don't want to use sustainability because that's just now become a kind of term that can mean anything. And resiliency to a certain extent also, but something where we're actually addressing the new era that we're in, that happens to include COVID, but we didn't plan for COVID, but ideally this plan can stretch to include COVID. The commission is thinking.
I think it's going to be hard to come up with some sort of catchy title right now in this moment. And I mean, maybe that's something I can even ask Brandy to consider. But if you're all in agreement that that's, you know, one way that we can work to kind of solve what it is we're trying to achieve, we can give that some thought, and you certainly can, and email us.
Yeah, Josh, you've got your hand up. And
I'm
then
curious
Jessica.
I'm curious to hear Oscar about if this is sufficient.
Well, I think there's kind of, sorry, I have a weird microphone setup going on. I hope you can hear me. There's sort of two parts to it, right? There's one when you have a plan that you're super happy about. There's the challenge of marketing it and conveying it to people. And I think a title could really help with that. I think my critique is a little more fundamental. Like, having read the whole report, I'm not totally sure what the core argument is. I don't know who worked on this. I don't know who I'm looking at and insulting right now by saying this, but I mean it all in the best spirits. But it just, so I'm not sure that for me it's the lack of like a summary or a title. It's more, I don't know. I just, as I go through and I read each individual recommendation, I have a really hard time evaluating it because I just don't have a sense of what it's for, like what the goal that would be worked towards by doing that specific thing would be. I mean, if the goals are sort of more specific, like, you know, improving pedestrian and bike access in downtown, then there's certainly a bunch of things in this plan where it immediately becomes obvious, like, oh yeah, this is targeted towards that goal. That makes a lot of sense. And then you can sort of think critically about it as a reader. Oh, this is supposed to help walkability. Now I can think, does this seem like the best way to do this? Oh, this is a good idea. Maybe I think it's not a good idea, whatever, but you sort of have a context. But there is other stuff in here too that, well, I guess the question is there a broader goal or problem with downtown when you talk about, you know, fixing downtown or something like that? Are there broader problems that these strategies are working towards? And if there are, yeah, they should be upfront for sure. And to me, every single specific recommendation that stays in the plan should be able to be directly tied to a goal that's at the top of the report, if that makes sense. So this, for something to stay in the plan, it should be directly linked to fixing something that's a goal of the plan, that's stated as a goal of the plan. So, yeah.
Can I jump in?
Can you wait on Jessica, Tom? Because Jessica was next.
Sure. Okay.
I think I forgot what I was going to say. I thought of it
okay.
before Josh spoke and then got wrapped up in what was being said.
Okay, sorry. Go ahead, Tom.
Okay. Well, I fear not. I fear to open the story map again due to my technical issues and may overload. But if I recall, there was a section in the middle called public space assessment, and they spoke a lot about you know, the goals and visions of better bicycling and pedestrian experience. But there was, I don't think there was anything in that assessment section about the other three goals of the RFP: economic stability, stormwater, addressing green infrastructure for stormwater, and identifying opportunities for creative placemaking. I mean, they address those in their proposals later, but in that sort of assessment section, which I see as where they're delving into analyzing the current context and then saying what the goals, visions are, and it's like a launch pad for how to move forward for the proposals. It's lacking those other three things, so that's just another facet of what you all have been saying, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I really appreciate Oscar's comments, and I think they're really helpful as we roll this out to the public. And perhaps it's because I'm a little too close to it. I'm not necessarily, like, when I look at it, I see it there, but again, I'm too close to it. And so I think another, looking at it again, and then really making sure that we're taking it out to the public, that we're being clear about what it is we're trying to achieve. I mean, I think you can debate whether or not those are the highest priority for downtown. We had our reasons for the various different things in the beginning, and maybe that's not coming through. But I really do appreciate your comments, because I think that this is likely what people are going to be questioning us about.
Oscar, do you want to comment? Go ahead.
Yeah, if that's there, and it's a long document, and I've read it in different parts over time, and there are bullets at the top of the plan, and one of them is pedestrians and bicyclists. So there are full 4 bullet points there, and I suspect those are probably more or less straight from the RFP, if I had to guess.
Yep.
So maybe I'm trying to figure out why I had that reaction to the plan, even though those things are at the top of the plan and I read them. And I think maybe it would just be a matter, maybe I just didn't read it closely enough. That's entirely possible, but it might also be a matter of tying specific recommendations throughout the plan back to those points more explicitly, something like that. So I'm not sure, but
I don't think, oh, sorry.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Prudence.
I don't think it's just that you didn't read it closely enough, because I had that same concern. It's like, what's the case for this plan? What are we, it's got to be compelling. There's so much going on. It's going to be too easy to ignore it if it's not clearly tied to goals that there's support for.
Is it possible to do some kind of an executive summary that says, here are the 4 goals, and here are the 4 like summary solutions with short, medium, and long term, so that for the person who wants to go through it, they can go through it. But for somebody who just says, okay, what's the plan? What's the plan? Here are the goals of the plan, and here's how we plan to achieve them. Seems like. But I wonder, Oscar, if the thing that you're getting at that is giving me some concern about the public rollout is, do you not see these issues as priorities for Brattleboro? Once you've seen what they are you saying they in fact don't strike you as a resident as things that we should be paying attention to? There are other things that we should be paying attention to.
None of them seem like wrong. I'm not an expert on planning, and so maybe I just wanted, I don't know, maybe I wanted to be convinced that these were the 4 most important things, convinced by the report that these are the 4 most important things. Like, these are downtown Brattleboro's 4 problems, or at least the 4 problems that are within the reach of, the planning department. Some stuff is obviously way too big for that. And I guess part of it is also that I read a book about it recently, and I'm a little skeptical of the public spaces stuff. But that's not that useful. So yeah, maybe it is just sort of wishing there was more of yeah, like a case being made by the experts who made the plan that we've identified these problems. This is where our energy and resources are best spent. And that would be sort of the lead into the bullet points. And then the bullet points, if they're more strongly tied to the individual ideas, then that's the lead into the rest of the report. But yeah, I don't know.
I'm curious what book you read.
Oh, what's it called? It's called The Death and Life of Great American Cities.
Oh, yeah,
I read that in college.
It was good.
classic.
My education, yep.
Yes, Prudence, turned your microphone on. No, you didn't. You didn't want to speak though.
I wonder if some of this is the format, and that's not going to change either at this point. Yeah, if the story map, because there is kind of limited text and the way it lays out, or this ability to put all this information in, maybe it's part of the problem. I don't think it's the entirety of the problem that Oscar's bringing forward, but it is a new and different format. And perhaps the organization could have been a little different in it. I think they're really constructive comments, though, and something that we need to deal with.
Oscar says, I like the print format you can switch to is actually pretty good. I think the print format you can switch to is actually pretty good for someone like me who prefers text to images. I mean, I agree with that. I find that's what I did. I downloaded it as a PDF and read it. But it is 102 pages, so not for the faint of heart. But I'm I feel like this may be the elephant in the room, and I like to identify when there are elephants in the room. So I wonder if this plan or that we've got sort of reflects our rather paltry public engagement in it. That we didn't get that much participation from any of the public moments, and so the ideas are really the ideas of the various people that were hired by PlaySense in order to do stuff, and they're not a sort of coherent Brattleboroians sort of saying this is what I think would be cool, but rather designers and people coming in and saying this is what we think would be cool. So, and there's nothing we can do about that other than try to get more of the public engagement now, because there is some really I like pictures. There are some really useful sketches that demonstrate there could be, if we did this in this place, it could be really nice. I mean, like the High Grove parking lot, I think idea is fabulous. And it would be one that would transform that really beautiful space into something that could be both a parking lot and a public space where people could hang out and take advantage of that gorgeous view, that I think would enhance visitors' experience of Brattleboro, because I bet most visitors to Brattleboro never get that view. Anyway, that's just an aside. Yeah, Oscar.
Please tell me if I'm talking too much, because I'm not even on the commission. That one in particular, I think, is what I had the Jane Jacobs reaction to, because it seemed like on paper it sounds beautiful. It would be super cool. I would love to see it happen, but I can completely imagine a future where nobody goes through it, and it's like a slightly, a place that maybe you don't want to go through that much because there's no traffic, and people hang out there, and it becomes a place that you might not want to show off to tourists.
Oh, interesting.
So, yeah.
All right, that's fascinating. We might be getting into the weeds here, though, so I'm gonna back up. Where do we go from here?
So just a couple of quick responses to you, Felicity. I think yes to your comment that, you know, there wasn't a lot of people that participated. So I think some of the things are what the consultants came up with as thinking were good ideas. I mean, I don't want to completely say it was just them. There was the survey, there was, you know, some engagement with people, but we do know it wasn't great. So for sure, I think that's part of it. And it's kind of why I also liked Jess's suggestion that when we go out there with the public conversation that, yeah, I mean, some of it might be testing it out. So I think the next step is the videos that kind of explain what the plan is and making sure that we can get them out there and have the conversations with the different groups. And it's also why I think that we don't need to get this to the select board right away. I think we need to make sure it's the right plan before the planning commission feels comfortable sending something up there. I mean, you know, if it is a bunch of good ideas that parts of them get picked off at certain times, you know, that's okay too. But if the planning commission is going to send something up to them, we should stand behind it and feel comfortable. And so if our public process wasn't enough, then, you know, and we don't think it was, then let's do that now.
Okay, so yeah, Josh.
I'm curious to what you're about to say, Felicity.
I'm just thinking, is there a way for us to make some edits to it so that we can start the process of rolling it out to get some feedback so that we can edit it on a larger scale? Yeah, go ahead.
So my original comment was going to be, I remember when she told us the public participation numbers, I was actually kind of impressed. It's like 500 people were involved.
From the survey, yeah.
Survey specifically.
From the survey.
Yeah.
And I remember actually being a little bit impressed by the amount of public participation. You know, it's, to get the public to participate in events around here is really difficult. And I remember being like, wow, that's actually much better than I expected. So that's just my thought on the public participation. I'm not disagreeing. It could always be way better. It'd be awesome if all 12,000 people in Brattleboro participated. But you know, I remember the 500 that we got, at least specifically in the survey. The events were definitely light, but there was reason for those events being light. So yeah,
I wasn't thinking of the survey at all. I was thinking of those events when people were like, I went on a couple of the walking tours, and I think for the most part, the ones that I were on, there was only one or two other people there. And for me, those were the places where potentially, you know, you would get, if you had even 10 people there or even 8 people there, actually spanning out over the space and looking at it with the eyes of, oh, this is a space in my town, and what would I really like to see here? That's the kind of thing that you can really get if you've got a designer right there. The designer listens and says, I can actually turn that cool idea into a sketch that shows. So I think that's the piece when I think about the public process, that's the piece that I thought was missing. And not the surveys. Like, yeah, the surveys were well, but what we learned from the surveys is this concern around the sense that the transportation center is not sufficiently welcoming for people to park there. So back to the question. What can we edit it? Is there a way to edit it to be able to make this connection between these are the goals, this is the solution, and then if you want to go through this larger thing, you can, but otherwise we can get some feedback on the goal solution matrix. Yeah, Prudence.
I don't know if Sue and Andrew have the bandwidth to do this, but I think it's going to be hard for us to do it as a group, to try to go through and edit it together. So I don't know whether staff could take a, take a stab at doing that, of, setting the goals, clearly at the beginning and trying to line some other things up under those goals for us to then look at. Or you know, or do you want, I don't know. Don't you think it'll be hard for us to do it in a Zoom meeting?
Oh, yes. No, I was imagining that somebody was going to take it and do it offline. I wasn't thinking we would do it right here.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I would say it's either going to be staff or it's going to be the consultant. So I need to talk to Brandy.
Okay. By when do we have to do this, Sue?
Well, I think it's this month, but what I would say is, even if the story map is being, worked on a little bit, I don't know that that precludes like the videos from being produced. So I think, I think that she can get to work on that, because if it's a short video, so maybe it's a video on the way around, maybe it's a video on Bridge Street, Depot Street, however the videos end up being, it's going to be the graphics that are being probably most discussed in the videos.
Yeah, Jess.
I have a request around the videos. We're talking about, so what's the point, or what are the outcomes, or what will change if we go through this plan? I think focusing the videos on that instead of diving into the nitty-gritty details of all the different possibilities that we could do at Harmony Lot or whatever, might be more helpful. Like, how are we going to make it more bike pedestrian friendly? How are we going to provide more green space? How are we going to provide, I don't remember what the goals are there. It just happened to him.
Yeah, that seems like a good idea. Caller 2 is I. Okay, welcome back, Tom.
Thank you.
I was just saying, because I think that the story map is great, but there are so much detail to process.
Right.
And especially in the ideas for, architectural layout of space that is, 5-10 years down the road. It's like, well, why spend so much time describing that? Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder if, is it possible, Sue, for us to have one video on each goal that says, here's the goal, stormwater, green infrastructure, and this is the solution. Here's the goal, bike pedestrian pathway, and here's the solution. Because back to your point, Prudence, I think there are pieces of the way around that I think would be great. But I think if we roll that out to the public would say, well, we want that part, but we don't want that part. And if we could get, that sort of thing that we could present and say, there are components of these things that I think would be helpful. And then we'll wait until we get something better that we could complete the way around. But at least we could get something better than what we've got right now. I'm particularly thinking of that just because we spent a lot of time working on that, it seems to me, and it seems like they really had, Main Street is just kind of a dead letter for trying to figure out how you're going to get cars, pedestrians, and sidewalks and safe transit there. But I think if we got the trucks to go somewhere else, that would go a long way towards helping us with Main Street. So how about that? How about videos for each one of the goals and the solution?
Yep.
And is that going to drive? Is Brandy going to get unhappy? Not that it's our job.
No, I think we talked about doing multiple videos, and we're not talking about 20-minute videos. We're talking about 5-10 minutes. So
yeah.
No, I don't think that'll be
them 5 minutes long. That's like, I think that's way more digestible. Less, yeah. Josh.
Yeah. Between 2 and 5 minutes. And I had I sent this to you, Sue, but I'm going to say it out loud anyway. I really didn't. I didn't like those little public service videos in the plan. I thought just Just show me what it is. Just show me a picture of what it is. I don't need to watch a little video that shows me people in Indianapolis. Because their urban infrastructures are different from ours. I get caught up in their experience and I want to be thinking about my own. But anyway, so please don't
Well,
include any
that's
of
a
those
good one
other
to
things
ask.
in the videos.
Do you all agree with that? Because we can ask her to take them out.
I agree on the Indianapolis one. However, that one on the Sharrows was really helpful because I didn't know that as a cyclist, I'm supposed to ride in the middle of that Sharrow. I just knew that like cars were supposed to realize that I'm going to be in the road too. So I think the Sharrow one I thought was good just to educate people, but that's a little diversion, really, digression.
Yeah. No, I mean, they need to be replaced. I assume they were sort of a time-saving mechanism because they have to be replaced with this is what it would look like.
Right.
And that takes time to produce, whereas, getting a little vid doesn't.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't really care. It's just
Okay.
I hope she does not put them in the actual rollout videos because they would be I would see them as a super distraction.
No, we won't do that.
Okay, do we have a plan?
I have one more comment.
Yeah.
I thought that that speaking of these videos, I was remembering that one of that whatever town that was where they did what is being proposed, the Dutch word for
The
Bridge Street.
Wooner.
Party. What is it?
Wooner.
Wooner, yeah.
Wooner. Yeah, I mean it was
With an S at
exciting.
the end.
Yeah, to think about Bridge Street and Depot, the potential for the Depot lot and stuff like that. So, I mean,
Yep.
maybe we can come up with the stuff that we think is most compelling, and then, that might be a way to get support too. I don't know if we can all agree or not, but
Oh no, I think that we probably can. We probably can tonight though. Yeah, Josh.
I feel so long as we prioritize things that will be mostly beneficial to COVID, I think I'll be pretty agreeable.
Okay. All right. Are we good on that? Jess.
Just so our next steps are Sue's gonna have Brandy create the videos. What else is happening? Like how were we gonna discuss like what the public rollout was?
Yeah, so Sue's gonna take it to the DBA. We need some kind of executive summary that either the staff or Brandy is gonna produce. And then that gets I mean we know some people that like the DBA, Stephanie, all the downtown businesses are obviously going to get copies of it. And then presumably various groups like the bike group will get it. The energy, I mean, I would assume needs to get sent to all the downtown committees like the energy committee and other, because of the green infrastructure question. The sustainability coordinator needs to look at it and see whether or not, I mean, that's it, we don't necessarily have to do that, right, Sue? I mean, it's going to be the staff that's going to send it out, and then we're going to hear comments back from people, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think I see where Jess is going with this question. So, and yeah, we haven't really talked about it. I mean, certainly there's the people that we send it out to and that we'll follow up with. We'll try to get it in the newspaper. We'll get it up on BCTV. But how do we make sure that people know that they're invited to give us comments, or how are we reaching out to them to get those comments once we've kind of distributed it? So I think that's it's more than just getting it out to the different group. It's making sure that we're hearing what they have to say.
But if we can my understanding is all we need to do in order to, that's on a time schedule is get it out.
Yes.
Getting comments back and then revising and switching it and changing it and tweaking it, that we can do in our own time frame before we take it to the select board, which might be as late as, I don't know, September, October, right?
Oh, I'm thinking it could be even later.
Oh,
I mean, we'll have to see what feedback. I mean,
right.
it just depends.
But it's not, we don't have to rush to get the comments back from people. What we need to do is rush to get the thing out so that we can say we got it out and we got public comments. And we should, I mean, we have to, presumably we all need to be in touch with our various constituencies and say, we got this plan. It was produced pre-COVID. We're now in COVID. We're trying to retool it. Can you please, share this with your friends? I mean, that's where I think the executive summary helps, because a poster or a page is easier to say, can you just have a look at this and get back to me on it? And then maybe later we can sort of figure out, how do we do a public process where we're actually sending it out and giving people a time frame for when they get comments back to us. But between now and the end of the month, the only thing we need to do is get it out, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And will there be a mechanism, as it goes out, will there be a mechanism included to collect that feedback? Like where does the ear come in? Who is the ear? What is the ear that receives any comments that come out of what we're doing this month?
Yeah, I think it's going to come back to the department and shared with the planning commission.
Is that a survey monkey, or is that just read this and send us some comments?
What do you guys want it to be? It can be a survey monkey. I mean, it can be, it could be, a couple of questions that we send along with it that we ask them to respond to. It can be, email us with your comments and questions. What do you think would be best?
I kind of like the, can I jump in?
Yeah, go ahead, Tom.
My preference right now, first time thinking about it, is just totally open-ended and see how that works out. I feel like we've done surveys and prompted people to think and answer certain ways. Maybe if we just try open-ended, we'll see what people come up with.
I kind of like the contrary thing. I'm in the process of editing, or making some changes to a book that I wrote. And the process when you write a book is it goes out to readers, and readers fill out a reader sheet. And it's, there's a series of questions that are asked, including, is there a market for this book? And do you think that the book sets out to do something, and does it achieve what it sets out to do? So I find those really helpful. I think if we send a thing that says, this plan is intended to make Brattleboro economically viable and sustainable in the future, do you think it accomplishes that aim?
Oh yeah.
I
mean, point taken. That sounds worthwhile.
Josh, you had a comment.
Yeah, I agree with Felicity. I almost, because of how meaty this is and how involved and busy the folks that we really want feedback from, I'm concerned that we're not going to get too much feedback. So I'm almost wondering if we want to incentivize people for feedback. I have no idea what that looks like, but.
A candy bar.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, we'll take away that local percent option tax for them specifically. No, I don't know how to incentivize people, but we need feedback. We want feedback, and people are really busy. And the people we really want feedback from, it's like, how do we get them to participate and engage with this? I don't know. I don't have ideas. I just know that I worry about the public participation part of this process.
Well, that's why I'm suggesting that we target particular groups that, by virtue of their jobs, have a stake in the success of this plan. So the DBA is one that's a no-brainer. I can't remember what is your that group called Prudence BCAT. Is that right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
BCAT.
BCAT. And the Energy Committee, those just seem to me to be, you know, that the plan is designed to actually achieve the goals of these various groups. Do you think it does it? And now is your chance, because if you don't think it does it, you should really tell us. And then hopefully, you know, say, I think it does a piece of it, and this is the piece that it does. And so I really like that piece, because that would be really helpful for people to say, you know, there's a kernel, there's a grain in here that's really helpful.
The only thing I'd say is I think we need to be inclusive and try to get, it can't just be, you know, in this first round that we go out to, we just need to make sure, you know, it's got to go to the Boys and Girls Club. It's got to go to Groundworks and some of the different groups that we engaged to allow everybody to kind of, to try to get inclusive feedback.
The root,
and there's lots of
social
other
justice
groups as well.
and Inclusion Center should be on that list.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I think it's a bigger list, and you know, we get what we get in this first round, and then maybe it's more of a you know, we have to reach out after.
But I
You
like
know,
that.
we worked with Andrew, went to the high school and worked with Jack Clark from Building a Positive Community. So maybe she will have some contacts with students still, so we can, you know, maybe get some feedback that way.
But the key is that we just need to get it out. We don't necessarily, I mean, because I'm now starting to get concerned about sending something to people and saying, get us your feedback. We can give them time, right? We don't have to make them respond to us within a month. Okay.
Yes. I'm not super concerned. I think that from working with our consultant perspective, we need the videos done. We need to be able to say to the state, you know, yes, we've got it out there.
Okay.
Whether their comments come in August or, you know, by the end of July, I don't think it's going to matter very much. I think they're going to be pretty flexible. And
Great. Yeah, and things change, right? I mean, we may be in a very different situation in August, and we might have to pivot again. Yeah, Josh.
I work well with deadlines though, so I don't know how many other people do. And if we are actually on a deadline, I feel that if we do give a time limit, that wouldn't be the end of the world.
How does everybody feel about that?
Fine with
Yes, to time frame.
yeah, so
How, 2
Agree.
weeks, 3 weeks?
I would give them 2
About
weeks probably
mid-August.
when it's ready to go.
What'd you say, Prudence?
I thought maybe mid-August.
Wow. Well, the videos, how long will the videos take? I know Brandy's been super busy.
I'll have to check in, see how long.
Okay.
I mean, a week maybe.
Okay. First week of August? Deadline?
Sure.
Okay.
Let me be flexible. Let me get the videos, and then when we get it out, is there a couple of you that maybe want to help with the what are the questions that we want to ask?
Yes, Josh. Jessica.
Sorry, I'm referring back. Sorry, did I interrupt, Jessica? I didn't mean to. I'm referring back. I'm not writing question. I'm on. I thought we were talking about the public a deadline for public participation, not for Brandy.
No, this is right. Yeah, the public participation deadline is the first week of August.
Okay, cool. All right.
Hopefully. So, Jess, are you volunteering to write questions?
Sure.
Great.
I can help also
Great.
if you'd like.
Super.
Okay, so Andrew and I will reach out to you with a couple, you know, that way we can have a little dialogue going between the four of us.
Okie dokie. Are we good on that one then? Public rollout of the downtown plan. Alrighty. Oh boy, it's I'm doing a time check. It is 7:10 and we're about to launch into a very large discussion. So we may not get through this discussion in the time, allotted. I'm just assuming that everybody kind of sort of starts to peter out at 8 o'clock, or needs to go and tend to other business. So, Sue, you want to give us the preface to this?
Sure. So, well, you might want to jump in on this, but I think this kind of started with a conversation that Felicity and Andrew had about, looking at the policies, looking at planning in Brattleboro, and this kind of goes along with the conversations we've been having about the regulations and housing and how do we create different types of housing. So Andrew's been doing a lot of research on planning for equity and, what are the policies across the planning issues. We've been spending a lot of time on housing, so I figured I would start with the housing survey and kind of give you an update of what's going on with that. We're not ready to discuss land use regulations tonight, but so you didn't see it. If you were in the Google Drive, I did put in, Tom had some comments about regulations from a previous meeting that we never got to, so I did put those in there. So if you were in there, you may have seen some of those, but I think that what we've kind of been talking about is how do we kind of try to level, make housing accessible to people, and kind of addressing the affordable housing needs of Brattleboro. I don't know, Felicity and Andrew, if you want to add something to that before I talk to you about the housing survey, and then we kind of go off in all different directions. But one of the things that Andrew and Felicity have been talking about was doing a workshop on, well, it wasn't just equity, was it? You guys can pick this up.
It was more, I think, looking at addressing racial equity in planning. Obviously, that's pretty broad, but I thought maybe being more specific, especially in light of what's going on, would be something that I think should be a big precedent in how we focus on things. And that's me personally, but I think that's how planning is going to be looking going forward. That's going to be the biggest thing about the planning issue. It's racial equity. It needs to be. And I know that we talked about a workshop where we could talk about maybe more holistic ideas. Maybe talk about some, history, background, but also what's going on now. We talked about data. I'm having a hard time getting a lot of specific data in regards to Brattleboro. I have gotten some stuff on Vermont as a state, but I don't think the workshop doesn't necessarily have to focus just on Brattleboro. It could be more holistic on racial equity and planning. There's a great APA policy guide. It's called Planning for Equity Policy Guide. It's super helpful, really good framework, and it really helps. It can help organize a conversation, so we can kind of somewhat stay intact, if that makes sense. But I think it also opens up opportunities to expand and look at Brattleboro specifically. Does that sound like what we discussed, Felicity, or somewhat?
Yeah, I think all of this obviously comes out of the current protests, and the recognition that systemic racism is the thing that we all have to address ourselves to, and systemic racism, as far as the Planning Commission is concerned, is in the issues with planning that planning has been racist in the United States. And so there has to be a way that we work regularly to undo that in whatever way we can. So because we're trying to, make it part of what we're doing, we wanted to inform people, but we also want to look particularly through the lenses that we're already looking, which is zoning and housing. So and just because I've been through an enormous number of workshops that deal with race, and there's constantly information, but then there's no, and so now we will do this. I would much prefer to focus on the we will now do this and forget about telling, explaining to people that we live in a racist society. I feel like we that train has left the station. I think we can all acknowledge we live in a racist society.
And
And now, what?
do that work on your own.
Yes, or do the work on your own if you haven't come to that yet. And
Or get in
move
touch with
forward.
Andrew and I if you need resources.
Right. Right. We don't want to leave people out, but we do want to actually, when we spend our time together, we actually want to get some stuff done, and make change. So that's really where what I'd like to do. And I have to say, I'm coming from a position. I mean, I've read that pamphlet, Sue, that you put in the packet. But it seems to me that it's heavy on principles and notions and short on examples. For example, when you're doing zoning, this is the thing you do in order to make sure that your zoning can't get co-opted by some racially inclined administrators. Because that, to me, I mean, we've made a lot of laws in this country in order to try to solve racial issues, and we found that they all get turned over into something that actually reinforces racist practices. So we need to be conscious of the notion that we got to write zoning regulations that can't get shifted and flipped. And I don't know how to do that. I'm just, yeah, go ahead, Josh.
We need someone on the planning commission that considers himself in a minority class, like pretty desperately. I think that's probably one of our first steps. And how do we go about doing that?
Ideas?
I mean, appointments are, we take anybody who's interested in being on the planning commission, and the select board makes the appointments. And generally there is, not more people than positions on the board. So yeah, I mean,
I know that's off subject, but when are the next? I'm probably coming up soon for renewal or whatever it's called. Like, are there dates? Like, you don't have to you don't have to provide them right now, but maybe in an email, like when our terms are up. Because maybe I can pursue someone to take my position that's way more appropriate to me.
Yeah, I mean, that's always helpful if you know people who might be interested in serving, either to recruit yourself or to let us know. June 30 is when the terms ended. And so both Tom and Kate were up this year, and both have re-upped. And Kate should be appointed by the select board tomorrow night. And then we're full again at 7. So.
Since
All
my
right,
name was named, I'll also say that people can resign at any point. Not that I want anyone to. I love you all.
Sorry, I didn't mean to sidetrack it. I just feel that that's the first step, is getting a not white person, on this monitor.
Or a person from a different socioeconomic group. No, I mean, maybe I'm making assumptions here, but it would be, I think that would be very helpful as well.
Absolutely. This is an exciting conversation, by the way. Like, I'm really digging this. I'm really excited to hear what folks have to say.
I kind of want to respond to that. There is this idea that just having representation on the board will sort of check one of our boxes, but I gotta say we gotta make sure it's a welcoming and accessible environment being yeah, it's hard to be part of a community that hasn't been like a part of a community that hasn't been part of something like this before. And I think a lot of us were new to this whole thing when we stepped in as planning commissioners, Josh and I at least. So yeah, I don't know. I think yes, it's important to have voices included. The piece that Sue sent around for me, that survey that's going around, or petition, I guess, to get the select board to adopt an inclusive approach to getting public comment for the conversation around police and budget in the town of Brattleboro, I think is sort of outlines this idea that you can't just request people to show up and do the emotional labor of saying what's wrong and what needs fixing. You can't just expect them to feel comfortable in space to do that, or not change your methods or culture to accommodate some of the burdens that participating in that might have on them. So yes, it's important to include more diverse voices in this commission, absolutely. But acknowledging that there may be barriers and acknowledging that we don't know what they may be, I think is also important.
Oscar has just put the police process proposal into the chat, but I think that was circulated with us. I wonder if one step that we could do, maybe combining this with our next item, which is G, is sensitivity training for all of the town committees. Because I mean, to understand the experience of what it's like to be the person who's having to represent your race or your economic class in a group of people who are different and historically maybe opposed to your existence. It would be valuable to have some. I mean, I've never done a sensitivity training, so I can't actually speak for them. But it does seem to me that if we had better training, we might be more inclusive, and we wouldn't necessarily need to mandate behaviors because we would all just be able to do them, because we would understand the implications of our behavior and the impact of on others.
Another thing too that we could do right here is just have those uncomfortable conversations, because that's obviously the first step, is to address discomfort, because they are uncomfortable because we haven't experienced it. But at the same time, we got to know that this isn't the issue at hand is really a white person problem. It's not a problem that minorities need to fix. We're the ones that have been putting in place. So I think that's the first step, is to acknowledge that we're all privileged and they are not, and that it exists, and people continue to deny that, and it's mind-blowing. But I think, if we can, make sure as a commission, and obviously as people, as white people, that's the first step, is addressing that. So, I mean, I'm open to have those conversations. I know some people aren't, but that's the first step. It's going to be uncomfortable. You got to move on and just, so.
Well, that's quite interesting. Do we want to do? I mean, do we need to make a statement that acknowledges that everybody on the commission recognizes systemic racism and the implications of it, and commits to the notion that we need to try to take it apart? Josh.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm all about this conversation. I couldn't agree more with Andrew. I want to apologize to Jessica for if I came off wrong about the inclusion. Okay, you're shaking your head now. I feel like I need to explain myself a little bit more. I may know some folks that may be interested, but getting them pumped and psyched to be here is the hard part, especially coming from me. because of my privilege and because of who I am and my disillusion. And I have a little bit of like a distrust for Brattleboro right now. So like coming from it's not the best thing. So maybe if we can all come together and like, you know, get some people stoked to be here is kind of where I'm at. And when it comes to uncomfortable conversations, I'm all about it, you know, and I'm all about recognizing my privilege, you know, and understanding like, you know, where we're at and how things really are not right for a lot of people and how we need to improve the system. You know, I'll stop now.
Prudence.
And I think that we should have some of that conversation, and you know, whether it's educating ourselves or you know, we wouldn't want to just put out a statement. I mean, that's what a lot of corporations are doing right now. They're just putting out statements.
Right.
So we wouldn't want to put, I wouldn't want to put out a statement and, you know, and not be really clear about how, you know, how our town and our area has promoted inequity.
Can I jump in?
Yeah, please, Tom.
Yeah, I loved going off your idea of the of maybe sensitivity training or for maybe all, you know, maybe all staff in the town government have gotten that or things like that. And there's lots of opportunities for continuing education, but just us citizens being on the various boards and committees, that'd be great maybe. And for us all to get access to that at some point if there's a good opportunity. And I also was going to say, yeah, it'd be great to somehow identify somebody or some resource that's really at the nexus. I guess your PDF is, but at the nexus of inclusion and equity with planning to like hold a workshop. I mean, that'd be more specific, and I don't necessarily think every committee and board should get their own person with or we need to it might be hard to find that and pay for those resources, but yeah, it kind of think ties in getting somebody on, you know, some representation of that on this commission as well, but just looking for those points where someone knows planning and someone knows being in those underprivileged communities at the same time who can shed some light on it for us.
So is that the kind of thing that we can use municipal planning grant money to do, Sue?
No, I don't believe so. I don't think it's just training. But I'd have to ask them. In the past, there's been some training money from a different pot of money from the state. I don't think it's been around for a while, but I don't think a straight training
But it could,
would.
we could use that money to do some data collection so we understand that, you know, sort of the places where in Brattleboro systemic racism has been most problematic. And there is, I mean, I looked at that municipal planning grant. It seemed to me that they talked a little bit about implementation. So is it possible for us to write it in such a way that we say, you know, what we want to do is we want to sort of shift planning in Brattleboro in order to follow the lines of putting race at the focus of each one of the things that we do. And in order to do that, we have to do this data collection. And then we also have to implement some sort of sensitivity training. I mean, maybe so we wouldn't be asking for the money just for the for sensitivity training, but that might be a piece of it. Is there a way to be creative with that?
Sure. Yeah, I think that there is a way to be creative about it. I think that, you know, you need to figure out, is that the top priority for the next year, or is it something with housing, or is it, you know, are we just going to make all those changes on our own? Do we feel like we know enough about the housing market? Do we need a housing study, or do we, you know, think that that's for you guys to decide? And then trying to write something that meets their goals, or, you know, might not be one of the priorities, but it could still be valid. as a project for them. And the one thing I think that we should think about with Brattleboro too, that I think the equity issues here are a lot about are socioeconomic, not just race. So got me thinking, when we were talking with housing and Jessica was asking, well, what about these neighborhoods where we're proposing the multi-unit housing, or making some changes, what do we know about the socioeconomics of it? And, it was like, oh, well, we're just kind of looking at where there's already dense housing. So maybe we need to densify other areas and not just continue to, to use the same neighborhoods over and over again to allow more housing. So, is there some connection, I guess, with housing, or which way does the Planning Commission want to go? Because I don't, I just think that a lot of Brattleboro's issues right now are socioeconomic as well. So I don't want to leave that piece out.
Tom, did you want to say something?
Oh, I was just agreeing that there's those two big parts. I guess Brattleboro, I mean, I don't, certainly not leaving anyone out, but as yeah, I mean, there's a socioeconomic divide, and a big range, I think, in Brattleboro, and we're missing. Well, I don't want to say anything more. I don't want to make some assumptions, but just agreeing with Sue that that's a big facet as well here.
So I don't think it has to be an either or. I think we can do both. I mean, I think we have to do both. I think the notion is that we can't really ever set race aside. We have to be conscious of it all the time. And if we do, I guess the question is it, do we want to, I mean, we've talked about sensitivity training. What else can we do? Seems to me the most important thing is we need more data. We need to understand what the issues are that are most pressing, that we need to be able to get it in and shift. And I don't know that we know what they are.
So Felicity,
Yeah, I
regarding
don't.
data. Sorry, go on.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, here's some data, Vermont data that I found today. I discussed it with Sue. It's not Brattleboro related, but it just shows that, in regard to race and housing in Vermont, 70% of Vermont white households own their own homes, which is about the same as the national average. And then Black families or Black households are 21% are homeowners, which is about half the national average. That's statewide. Now, when it comes to looking specifically at Brattleboro, I haven't found anything, but I know in obviously that population is small, but it can still show us something. But I just thought that was one thing to bring up in terms of what data can really show you about a place.
Wow. Yeah, Josh.
So this is a lot to consider and think about. So Felicity, you were almost about to ask a question, and then I got a little bit lost on the question. I feel like I would process a little bit better if there was a question there.
When?
Sorry, I just put you. You almost brought up a question saying just the last time you spoke, talking about diversity talking about training. Is that the question that we're talking about right now?
Well, no, I think we're really the general question is, what do we do about equity planning? And I think the first part of the discussion is sort of throw ideas out on the table, thinking about, and then the second part is trying to figure out, okay, here are our ideas on the table. How do we now organize them and go forward? And what I'm trying to do is because it seems to me that, we can't really do anything unless we've got some money behind what we're doing, especially if what we're doing is adding on to the staff's work. And so that I'm connecting equity planning with this municipal planning grant, because it seems to me that there's the money. And if there's a way that we can figure out what it is that we want to do, is there a way we can design it and so that we can use that municipal planning grant money? And it seems to me that, you know, anything that has to do with racial equity is going to be smiled upon in this day and age. For money, I would just assume that. So if we need more data in order to really understand what the issues are, that's exactly what the municipal planning grant is offering, is an opportunity to get more data. And housing is something that we have been working on. And from the data that Andrew just gave us, it seems like housing is an issue in racial equity in the state of Vermont. If we're disturbingly below the already disturbingly low state average of home ownership, we might want to go in that direction. Yeah, just
And also tying in the fact that a lot.
The
Jess, I'm sorry.
So this conversation makes me think of two groups in town. One is the Root Social Justice Center down on, what is it, Williams Street. And they are incredibly wonderful and active, and a meeting place and hub and cultural hub for our communities of color in Windham County. Another group is the very recently formed Brattleboro Tenants Union, which is a group of concerned apartment dwellers in Brattleboro, thinking about how they are getting priced out of housing in town, particularly downtown. There's another group, I forget what it's called right now, but laying things on the table.
So we could also ask for a municipal planning grant to engage the community, to underwrite, so get childcare to enable people to come if we were to do a public forum in which we asked people to participate and give us something to think about in terms of housing and zoning and stuff like that. So that would be that. I mean, that consistently is one stumbling block for public engagement, and there must be others. But those planning grants they do say that you can underwrite public engagement with them.
I need to understand how this would be framed a little bit more, but if it's just, and what kind of data that we're looking to collect. But I would say, based on my experience with the municipal planning grant and their criteria, this would, unless it's falling like within a housing plan or we make it really innovative, I'm not sure it's going to fall in a priority, but I'm wondering if it's a bigger part of this data collection and public engagement, you know, where kind of listening tour kind of thing that Felicity, when we spoke the other day, I kind of talked about, I was getting excited about it because I felt like, oh, it's time to do a new town plan. It's not, we have 8 years, or 6 years probably at this point, but it's you know, some big sort of outreach that's getting us set up for that. And, you know, being able to reframe the town plan with this equity lens is pretty exciting to me. So I think that if we're going to propose it as a municipal planning grant, it's, you know, maybe one step in a couple of steps along the way. We just have to, you know, frame it in some other bigger setting to kind of get us kicked off.
Go ahead, Josh.
if we're looking for a bigger setting to frame it in, and that would help me a lot too to understand this more. I like the idea of approaching like affordable, approaching housing as the direction to take it to where. Sorry, it's late in the day. My mind is not working. I really like the idea of being able to frame it with like what Jessica was saying about the Brattleboro Tenants Union and exploring, finding data on what it's like to live in Brattleboro and how affordable is it, and who are we marketing ourselves to, like when it comes to folks moving to the area, or how accessible is it for uh, minority or I wish we were having this conversation at like 10 o'clock this morning when I was drinking coffee.
Yeah, well, so can I pick up on that, Josh? Because
Please.
this is the town plan. So in preparation for this meeting, I was going back and looking at, and there's some interesting, I mean, we set out some goals for our housing, and I thought if we are planning on this notion of trying to actually revise and rewrite the town plan, maybe we can do some assessment on how well we've done so far on reaching our goals with a particular refocus on equity. But so the goals are A, improve the quality of existing housing stock in the neighborhoods in which it is located. B, increase the supply of housing opportunities to serve residents of all income levels, age groups, and special needs. C, balance the need and provision of housing in the community with impacts on the environment and on public facilities and services. And D, provide equal housing opportunities for all residents of Brattleboro. So it seems like if we can roll this all into something where we say we're actually we're focusing now on racial equity, racial and socioeconomic equity, and we're looking forward to rewriting the town plan with that as a central focus. And in order to prepare ourselves for the rewriting of the town plan, we want to actually assess how well we've done in accomplishing the goals that we set out in our current plan.
Boom. That's it right there.
Nope, not as far as Sue is concerned.
I don't think an assessment, no, I don't think an assessment of how we've been doing, you know, getting money to do an assessment, I don't think that's gonna, that to me doesn't really do it. I think we should do our own assessment and then figure out what it is we need and spend the money to do that. And so even if it is like, we're just gonna rewrite the town plan in this lens of equity, and so we want to begin that work with public outreach and, you know, sensitivity training, and
Oops, sorry.
I think that would be better. I don't think they're going to want to spend money for us to assess our last town plan.
But part of assessing the last town plan is actually seeing where we are. I mean, don't you need benchmarks to say,
Oh,
here's where we
I guess I
are?
misunderstood.
Yeah,
I misunderstood.
that's what I'm talking about, is a sort of notion of, you know, we set out with, and this is, I mean, I've said this before about the town plan, there's not enough data that's available for us to say how well we're doing with actually accomplishing our plan. There are these grandiose goals, but the grandiose goals don't say, you know, there are 7 houses that are currently available for this cohort of people, and we want to have 52 by the time we get to our, you know, the end of our plan. Yes, Andrew.
Well, one thing that we as staff could potentially do is go back and look at, you know, past permits, the past how many years, and we can see the type of development that's happening and actually look specifically at the housing stock. That will give us at least some raw data to start with. But that's the first thing that kind of pops in my mind is, you know, how many housing permits we're getting per year, what kind of housing, is it single family, 2+, 3+, 5+, etc. So that's something that popped in my mind. That is, I think, doable.
Yeah, and to Josh's point, it's getting to the witching hour. So how do we want to go from here? I mean, this is obviously a big conversation, like many of the conversations we have. We get into it and then there isn't a conclusion that we can reach it by the time we end. But I really think we should commit ourselves to actually doing something with this one. This should not go by the wayside. Yes, Jessica.
I'd love to include the Root Social Justice Center and the Brattleboro Tenants Union in who we send the downtown plan to for feedback. Just
Good
as
idea.
like, there's a little thing we can do. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, Josh.
And I would love to keep this conversation going at another time. Now that I'm like chewing on it and thinking about it, I would love to, you know, spend some time with this and come back to this if at all possible.
Oh yeah, yeah. And I
So
was going to send you
the good
guys
thing,
around this. Go ahead, Sue.
no, I was going to say the good thing is this grant is not due till October 1st. So I brought it up early so everybody could be thinking about it. So it will be on the August agenda. It would be good if we can try to figure out what the project is then. So if there's another little couple of people that want to work together to kind of flesh something out for the August meeting, that would be cool.
Can I
Is
ask
there
a
information on the
But we've got a
grant?
couple of meetings.
Josh,
Is
are
there
you
I'm sorry?
volunteering?
oh,
Is there information
can
on
I
the
jump in?
grant? The Google Drive?
Yes,
Yes.
it is. Yeah. Tom, go ahead.
Yep. I think I know the answer to this, and it's right in the name of the grant. But the options are all for planning, right? They're not for anything that could resemble implementation.
That's correct.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
I mean, it says implementation, but when you read the fine print, there's nothing there for implementation,
Okay.
sadly. So Josh, were you volunteering to be a person who was going to work offline on honing in a little bit more on what we want, or
Yeah,
were you? Yeah.
yeah, no,
Okay, great.
definitely get involved in this. I'm excited to talk to Jessica, Tom. I'm excited to talk to all of you guys about your ideas, where you're at right now. So it would be awesome if we all participated in this somehow. You know, I know that's difficult.
No, that would be great. I mean, I think we can. Sue, can we get GoToMeeting accounts as commissioners that we can use so we can use this mechanism? No, we can't.
No.
But if it's
Who?
just 2 people, you could use Zoom for a
Oh,
conversation.
that's right. We're not allowed to meet though,
Yeah, we're
unless
not allowed to meet as a group.
You're not
So
allowed to meet. No, you can't. If there's like a small subcommittee that's not a quorum, I can set you up with a meeting. And you know, Andrew and I will be on or whatever.
can we?
You shouldn't really go. We can't have a quorum meeting anywhere to kind of discuss planning commission business. But if there's like a small group of, you know, less than a quorum that are trying to put this together to then bring to the next planning commission meeting, that's going to be okay.
And how many people are less than a
Does that
quorum?
make sense? You could have 3. 4 is a quorum.
Jessica, Josh, and Tom, do you want to take this? You're smiling. Is that yes?
I volunteered them, and now I feel bad.
Yes, I will have a conversation.
Great.
Is that what we're
Okay.
doing, Josh? Is that the goal? I guess you're the chair of this.
Oh God, is that what just happened to me? I don't know if I should be the chair just because of my time, but then also my not full understanding of the nuts and bolts of this. But I definitely want to be a part of the conversation.
And just clarify for me again, what is the conversation?
I think what we need, the next step is to hone in on what the next step is. So if we're committed to trying to redesign our planning, both our process and actually the goals that we set for ourselves, around issues of equity, racial and socioeconomic. How can we start that process? And I'm suggesting that one of the things we definitely need to do is we need to have information so that we understand exactly, like, I would like to know how many Black and brown homeowners there are. What's the percentage of Black and brown homeowners in Brattleboro? If the state is 21%, is Brattleboro 5, or is it 50? That would be nice to know. And can we know
closer
that?
to 2%.
It's probably 2%. Yeah. Okay. So then the more information that we can actually produce, the more we will be able to engage the public in understanding why we're setting this as a top priority for the work that we do.
Yeah. And I think actually the document that Oscar tagged in the comments, this proposal for police process, it outlines a really nice, inclusive public input process. So I think that not only should we look at the policies that we have control of as a planning commission, but our process in engaging people and engaging the public, and how that gets defined.
Great. So that's your charge for between now and our next meeting, is to sort of come up with a framework for what we might ask for money to be able to do.
And my understanding is the potential goal is data collection.
Data collection, and I'm still holding out hope that Sue's creative capacity to write grants will also get us sensitivity training.
Awesome. Okay.
Oh, all right. Our next meeting is August. Is that right? It's July now.
That is
so
right.
I'm really, really sorry to say the next time we see each other, it will be August. Yikes. And
so frequently, I'm gonna miss you guys so much.
so is there any other business to come before us before we adjourn? If they're failing that, does somebody want to make a motion to adjourn?
Can I say one thing?
Yes, Sue.
Unless somebody else has something before me. At the August meeting, we need to do an annual organization meeting. So election of chair, vice chair, clerk, review of the bylaws, and I think we want to include a discussion of agenda setting. So, but I would say in the meantime, if you have something that you want in the agenda, I'm on vacation the last week of July, so I would say if you've got something that you want Felicity to consider having on the agenda, she'll be chair for at least setting the next agenda. Yeah, if you want something, if you could get it to us within 2 weeks, send it to Felicity and myself. That would be good. Because we'll set the agenda a little bit early because I'll be on vacation right before our next meeting.
Okay, everybody know what their jobs are? You people who volunteered for things? Okay, super. Great. Is there a motion?
I move we
So
adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second. From
Okay.
Tom.
All those in favor, thumbs up or aye, Tom?
Aye.
Aye, Tom.
Okay. We stand adjourned. Thank you all.
Aye, robot.
Stay safe,
Thanks,
everyone.
guys. Good to see you.
Good evening.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great night.
Tom and Jen.